Hi, Zombie05 here with an updated video on how to import a model into Sins of a Solar Empire. So first we're going to start with XSI, and we're going to locate a file that we want to import. So we're going to start with a wavefront object file, and let me get in, choose my project that we're at. So if you have multiple projects, you can quick link to the path and pull that in. There's also another way you can go in and do project manager, and I can select that as the active project. Mainly, I've just got a bunch of junk because I've done several different things, and I'm kind of a pack rat and don't tend to clean up everything like some people might like. So let me go ahead and we're going to go back and import object, and we want to choose an object to import. So I'm going to take, I want to do one of these. Okay, so I have an object file, and I'm going to import the material UV and UV mapping, and we're going to bring that in. So right away we see we have an object file. It's pretty, or a model, it's pretty small. We can just see that by the default grid that it's in. So this guy is pretty tiny. One of the other things we see right away is it's not oriented correctly for Sins of a Solar Empire. So to fix that, we want the front to face the front, top to be a top view, and right to be a view of the right part of the object. So if we hit on the rotate, we see what we need to do is this X rotation, and we want to bring it down to -90. Now, after we do a rotation like this, I'm not sure. After we do a rotation like this, there we go. I hit some hotkey there. Uh, we want to make sure that we freeze the transformation. Now I do have a shortcut here because this is a common thing that I constantly hit, but there's a pretty easy way just in the natural UI, and that's this transform. It looks like just a header, but it's actually a button. We can see with this little left triangle here that pops up a sub menu, and then we want to choose freeze all transforms. Now I created this button by right clicking here, doing customize toolbar. I found the freeze all transforms here, and we just drag that up into our menu bar and we get a freeze all transforms button. After you create a custom menu bar button, you want to make sure to right click in this area here and do save. If you want to save it as a particular name, you can do that too. So I've just done it to the main shelf here. Okay, so now we have an object that's properly oriented, but it's pretty small. So let's see how small. It's 6. This guy is fighter sized. So let's go ahead and bump him up a little bit. Let's see what 4 times does. And we'll do freeze all transforms. So these goes back to the scale of 1. And let's see, now we're up to 24. So now we're a smallish, kind of mid-size of a Corvette and a fighter. Uh, Still pretty small. Sins can handle it a little bit bigger. So let's do so 48. That's about right. The Corvettes are between 30 and 50 in terms of sizing. So we'll go ahead and stick with that. So now we've got our mesh here. Um, it's properly oriented. Now we want to set up our textures. Now this one had a texture already tied to it. So if we want to view the UV map, what we do is there's the hotkey of Alt 7. XSI likes hotkeys. It is the best way to use XSI. We want to get into the texture editor here. So again, that's we click on this mesh and we hit Alt 7. Now, if I don't have the mesh selected, so let's say I've got Control Shift A, it's not selected, and I hit Alt 7, I'm going to end up with an empty texture editor because it's not tied to the object. So we'll do that again. We'll do Alt 7, and we'll see this is the current texture that's tied to the object. But this isn't good enough for Sons of a Solar Empire. We've got to wire this thing up. So we got to have a properly rigged model for it to show correctly. So how do we do that? Well, let's do another hotkey. So we've got 8. 8 brings up our Scene Explorer. Now that's also the same as this Explorer here, and we can get into different areas of the scene. We can also do selection, which is very similar here too. But 8 brings up a dedicated window for this, and that's what we want to play in. Now, one of the things that I always do is delete the material that comes in with the object. It's a lot easier if you just deal with the default. So what I'll do is I'll select the Phong, we'll delete it, and I'll delete this material. Now I've got a scene root material. So this is a default. This is what I want to work with. So again, we talked about uh, tying the actual texture to the mesh. So what I want to do is press the number 8 key. So conveniently, we did Alt 7. Now it's just 8. And, or sorry, gosh dang it. We want to press the 7 key. The 8 was for the Explorer. 7 now brings up my material. So the 7 key brings up the render tree, and what we want to do is tie our textures to the Phong itself. So what we would do the manual way is go down to texture and drag over an image. Now we're going to need 3 of them, and we see that they're all tied to this no icon picture, which is good. Then we're going to take this red dot here and we're going to drag it to the Phong, and we want ambient, diffuse, and specular. So now I have my 3 images that I need for Sons of a Solar Empire. So this will be the normal map, the ambient, diffuse will be our color, and specular will be our data map. And what we're going to need to do is create the textures that tie into that. But this is the base level that we need. So now my material is partially set up right. I do have a shortcut for that, which I will provide this toolbar. Basically, it creates the 3 images and ties them to the Phong for you. So it does that manual drag over, so you don't have to do that. Let me now go. So if we look at our textured object now, we see it's just going to the default image that XSI has. If you're not familiar with the camera and user view here, I'll go ahead and do a little overview of that. Pressing the O key will put you into a rotation view, and holding the left mouse button down and moving the mouse will allow you to move around the object, and the scroll bar will let you zoom in and out. If I press the Z key, I get the magnifying glass. Left clicking will allow me to move the object left, right, up, or down, or I can zoom in and out. Okay, so what we said was we need to be able to create a texture. So what we want to do here is go to our actual texture, and we want to find one that we're going to work with here. So we're going to take the main color image. This one didn't come with a normal map, so I'll show you 2 different ways we can create normal maps. And then there's also this. Come with a specular. I was wanting to say it did, but I guess it didn't. So we'll go ahead and create one of those ourselves as well. Okay, so this is our color map. Sons of a Solar Empire, so I'm using GIMP. My focus is on free tools. There are some good uh, paid tools. If you're paying for the tool, you're probably paying to learn how to use it. I'll leave that to you for the free tools. GIMP has some ways that we need to do things in layers that are a little more unique to the tool itself. So to edit the layers, what we need to do is select this component and then decompose. So this is going to give us the layers. This TGA doesn't have a alpha layer. We're going to need to add that, but we can do that in the layered view, and I'll show you that. So we're going to extract the channels, so the red, green, and blue. And now we see that we have 3 layers now in GIMP. And what we want to do is now add a new layer here, and then this is going to be our team color layer. So this is where you put your team colors. Uh, for this particular object, we don't really need any. If you wanted to, what you do is you fill the team color layer with black, and then you can take parts of the object that you want to color in. So say we wanted to make this green area here part of the team color layer, we could copy this in to this team color layer, and then that would display as your pink or blue or green or whatever your selected race faction color is in Sins of a Solar Empire. Um, and we can go ahead and do that. Let's see if there's an easy way to maybe select this out. See if we can get all the green colors here and kind of create our own. Yeah, that was a little too much. This isn't bad. And let's see. Just use a couple of the GIMP selectors here. So I use the color selector and then I use the fuzzy select tool. So I'm just copying out. And what I'm going to do here is create a new layer just to paste these into for a moment so that I get the same spacing here. And then I can copy this whole layer. So this is kind of a trick to have things copy in the way you want them to. So I'm going to paste this now into the team color layer. So now these are in the right spot. So by making a new layer here and pasting in, and let me give you an example if you don't do this. So let's say I just copied these out of here and then pasted them in, we see that it's not quite in the same position. So by creating a new layer and pasting into that, we keep the same position in the object. And then that allows me to copy the whole layer in. So now I have a team color set up. We notice it's not all white. It's better not to have all white because the team color will shade based on the amount of gray to white that's in this file as well. So all white is just really bright, solid, kind of ugly, not a good way to go. So you do want some variations. There's a couple ways to do that. You can do this as all white in here and then paste the original image over and do multiplies on that. So playing around with these options. So the black stays black, but the area that was white gets that color added in. So there's some different ways to do that. Now we have this picture. What we need to do is recombine it. So this will be our color object, and we're going to recombine it with the RGBA. So we want to make that alpha come over. And when we get this, now we see that we have a good color file. We can see the team color part that's bleeding through. That's right. The rest of this will not display as team color. And if you decompose any existing sim images, it will be the same way. So we want to save this. And we'll go to save it in my scenes. We'll go to the alien here and we'll just call this temp CL. And we can, My preference, I use AMD Compressinator to convert to DDS. You can add the NVIDIA DDS plugin to GIMP, so I can do this two ways. So I can save it as temp CL DDS, and I want to make sure I choose BC3DX T5. This is for my color map, and we want to generate maps when we do this. So if we save it like that, the other way is I can save it as a TGA file, which is my own personal preference because TGAs are non-lossy image files. So if I want to ever come back and edit this, I definitely want the TGA. I never want to use the DDS as my source file. And then I use a tool called AMD Compressinator, and I'll choose that file I want to compress. So if I come in, I'll go to my scenes again. I'll go to my alien and let me find my temp. So here's my TGA file. And then what I do in the compressinator is I'll choose DXT5 and I'll choose box filter for the map and we'll start at 1 pixel by 1 pixel. Okay, and then if I compress this file, it will generate all the maps for me as well. This is the tool that Stardock used with the Rebellion version of Sins of a Solar Empire. I was using it before that. It works really well, and it's great for batch conversions. Okay, so that gives me this CL file. So if we go back into here, we'll press 7, and we get our material editor back up again, so the render tree. What we want to do is select this no icon pick, and I want to delete that out. So we don't need that, but what we do need is so we want to go in and find our temp CL. We want the DDS file when we rig it into the object. So we're going to take that and we're going to connect it to the diffuse with the TEX option. So this is our color file and it needs to go to diffused. Now if we select texture decaled, let's see, we want to go in. Now that we have this file, we don't want to make a copy. We want to, so I got to this scene material editor by just double clicking on scene material and not making a copy. We don't want to make a copy. Uh, and then we go to the OpenGL display and we're going to display this with the temp CL DDS. So now when we do texture decaled, we get our actual texture here. And so this is all good. Texture decal is a little more brighter, so that's what I tend to work in. And textured, a lot of times when we add the tangent, this is going to change, and we'll see that here in a minute. So now we have the CL. That's still not enough. We need to create our normal map, and we need to create our data map. Well, the normal map is easy. Let me delete that temporary layer. There's two tools that you can use for normal map. So there's the NVIDIA normal map that you can add in, and then there's the XNormal, which is a plugin, a Photoshop plugin that you can use in GIMP. So you can Google how to set this up. Both of these work really well. So if I want to create my normal map with XNormal, we'll see that we get our nice normal here. We'll do continue. So now I have a normal map that works with Sins of a Solar Empire. Now it's not completely set up right here because we do need an alpha channel. Now there's two ways again that you can save this. I could save this straight to DDS from here. If I were to do that, what we would do is, again, we would go to our temp and we would call this nm.dds. So this would be a direct save, and For this, we would want to use the BC3M for normal map, and what this will do is copy the red layer to the alpha layer, and we would want to generate bitmaps. Uh, Now, GIMP doesn't really show it here, but if I were to open this file again, we would see that the layers were copied that way. Let me go ahead and do that. This is important to understand how normal maps work. So here we see we get a neat little purple view. If we decompose this to the actual layer, so we're going to choose RGBA because this does have an alpha layer in it, we'll see that red is white, blue has just marginal details, which is normal when we create the normal map, and the red layer is actually in the alpha layer. And this is the way a properly set up normal map should be. Now, because I use AMD compressonators and I just batch convert everything, the other option to manually set this up is to decompose, there's no alpha layer yet, is to move the red layer to the alpha, and then we want to create a new layer and just white fill it. So that's the little fill here. So this is the way you manually set up. And if I recompose this as a TGA, we'll see we get the same purple, and I can save this as a, let me go to my scenes, alien, and we're going to save this as temp in m.tga. So two different ways to do the same thing. You can definitely use the DDS plugin, but when you save that way, you do need to make sure you're using that B3N DXT5N. Otherwise, you manually do it. Manually doing it forces me to make sure I'm doing things right and not missing a step, but this is totally up to you. So now I have a normal map. I need to drag that into here. So we just take this DDS file and now we drag that in, and we, oh, what did I click here? All right, there. And then we tie it to the text, and now we've got our normal map. All right, now we're missing the data map. Data maps are a little trickier. Um, what we need to do is make our color object, and let me go back here. We're going to get back to our color. All right. So what we want to do is somehow make this into a data map. So the first thing in GIMP is to decompose it. And then what I'm going to do is for our red layer, this is our specular layer. This will be the layer how kind of light is absorbed into the object. And then we have the reflective layer, which is our blue. So this would be how shiny the object is. Our alpha layer, which I'm going to go ahead and create here. So this is specular. This is our light layer. This is our reflective. And this is our bloom layer. And what we want for the light and bloom is to be all black to start. And we want to fill that in. And then we want to look at our specular. You can see I went ahead and copied the original image back in just so I can get all that details, because then I'm going to manipulate these. So for the specular, we can go ahead and make this fairly bright here. So this is going to have a lot of good variation. We're going to take our team color that we generated for the original color map, and we're going to use that for our light. So that's going to be a area that is lit up on our object. So we're just going to go ahead and reuse this, and we're going to pull this into here so we can see. So this is part of our light map, and we're going to make that part of our bloom also. And now we're going to look at the reflective layer. Um, Really, the darker you go here, the less reflective it would be. The brighter, the more reflective it's going to be. So it's kind of a personal preference on how you how you want your particular object to look. One of the things that's helpful is looking at the original models too in Sins of a Solar Empire and kind of setting this up uh, using similar techniques. Definitely Google good ways to set these up. That's always helpful. But now I have at least a solid data map, and sometimes it takes some playing. I'm still making my objects look better in Sins. Sometimes things just don't look as well as you want, and using only free tools kind of limits a little bit what you can do for some of these as well. But that's all right. Let me go in here. So I'm going to create a temp da.tga. So this is our data map. I'm going to save that. I'm going to go to my compressinator. And this is why I go ahead and set up a normal map with the red in the alpha, is because then I can just go in and make sure any changes I've made since then, I can just compress them all down at once. Okay, so now I need to bring in the data map, and we can see compressinator defaults to Big EDDS. We'll just make it consistent. Okay, and I tie that to the text. Now I have all my colors properly tied. So this is good. If you ever want to see how any of the other maps look, you can always come in here and change them around. Not particularly useful, but it's an option. All right. And yeah. Okay. So everything's tied together. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and close these down and just make sure everything looks the way it should. So that was pressing number 7 to bring up my render tree. If I press Alt 7, I'll get my UV map. If I press 8, I'll get my Explorer. So I'm almost there. We still have another step to do, and that's creating the tangent. Tangent is kind of a multi-step process. So what we want to do is select our object, and we're going to do a new texture projection. We're going to go ahead and just choose unique here, and my texture is 512, so I'm just going to head and leave it like that, because what we're going to do is press Alt 7 again, and I'm going to press Control A and Control C, and I'm going to click on the UV menu and select Texture Projection 1, and we're just going to copy in, so it's actually a duplicate UV map. So this is good. This is following the Sin standard way. Now you can set up your own UV map if you want. It will work for tangents. But what we're going to do now is we're going to select on property again. So we just did unique UVs. Now what we're going to do is select tangent. And we're going to get this little pop-up here. It defaults to your primary UV map. What we're going to do is pick a new UV. Now we can go from selection and drive down and select texture projection 1, or we can also press 8 again and have this window open and do the same thing. So we want to do pick and pick texture projection 1. Now this is a problem I run into with certain wavefront objects. So I want to go ahead and show you how I deal with this. So sometimes when I go to associate a UV map, I get this invalid procedure caller argument. This happens most of the time with wavefront object files. Lightwave, I don't get this. So what I do when I encounter this scenario is I'm going to freeze this model. So freeze all transforms and freeze. So I've got everything set the way I want. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to export this as a Lightwave object file. So I'm going to go into scenes, alien, and this is going to be my alien 01 Lightwave. And I'm going to export that out. Then I'm going to delete this in here, and I'm going to import a Lightwave, and I'm going to select that. And this is my workaround to correct this particular error. I want my scale set to 1, and I'm going to re-import this thing. Now, when I import a Lightwave object, I get an interesting scenario where it creates another material. What we do is we're just going to delete that out. And now I'm actually back exactly where I started. And I ended up with some cleanup here. We're going to clean this out, and we're going to clean this out. Okay, so I've got two UV maps here. And now we're going to recreate this tangent. And I'm going to select texture projection 1. So now this worked right. That's what we wanted to see. So again, this is my workaround when I hit this scenario with object files. When I try to associate the tangent to my second UV map, I get the invalid procedure call, I freeze my model, I export it out to Lightwave and re-import, deleting the original source, and then set that up. One of the other things that I found is helpful is on the tangent smoothing, just to go ahead and take this all the way up to 180. It's a little trick that was given by another modder, and it seems to work pretty well just by default. Once you freeze the model, these options go away. So if you ever want to play or have some issues with this, you will need to delete your tangent data and reapply it to reset these values. And let me kind of show that. So if I do a freeze here, we still have that, but when I do the freeze model, we no longer have options that I can edit here. If I want to recreate that, I do need to delete all 3 of these pieces of data and recreate my tangent. I won't need to do that for this though. So let's recap where we're at. We've got our material set up. So I press 7 to get to the render tree. I've got my normal map color and data tied in. So this is all correct. I've got 2 UV maps, so Alt 7, and they're both duplicates of each other. That's good. I've got my tangent created. That's good. So what am I missing? Now we're missing the root points. Root points need to be set up in a certain way. So what we need to do here is we're going to add a null primitive to our model. And this needs to be named root point. This guy just sits right in the middle here. And we're going to add to our root point. So what we need by default in the root point is a P001 center and a P002 aura and a P003 above. I hate doing this. Root points are a bane. what you want to do is make custom scripts like this. This custom script will create my above, my aura, and my center root point. And what did I, yep, I did get these created right. This is the manual way to do it. Again, I'm going to export this menu out. If you want to just auto create it, and let me show you kind of what that looks like. I have a script that creates all three of these and the root point, and that's my common here. And what I get is a root point with above, aura, and center already in here. The way to manually create that is to create your nulls like this. Uh, it's a whole lot simpler to create scripts that you want. So once we have our above, aura, and center created, what we want to do is raise the above up, kind of figure out a good point. So I'll do 20 and we'll make the aura -20. So, and center is important. Center actually in the game manipulates where the center of the body mass is. So when you're rotating around an object or it's rotating on its own axis, it's actually going to be by the center point. So now what we want to do is add the remaining points that we need. So we've got 3 exhaust ports here. So we're going to want to create 3 exhaust uh, root points here. Um, Now again, I showed you how to manually do it with the null and to create it. The simpler way is again to use a nice little script that creates my 3 exhausts, and this also makes them have arrows which are possible, so you can have a root point with certain looks on it. So if we open up a root point, you can set it up with an arrow, a pyramid, a circle. So what these scripts do is they automatically apply some certain look and feel. Now when you've got root points that are going to mirror each other, like these 2 engine points here, what I like to do is select both of them, and we're going to move them over and use these views here, kind of get it centered up as best we can on the object, kind of using our different views. We'll bring it back just a little bit. And if you look at the exhaust particle effects, there's uh, 3 different exhausts. There's a trail, there's a flare, and then there's a glow that get applied here, and they're all at different points. So you kind of have to play with the distance based on the particle effects that's being used. But because these should be symmetrized here, what we want to do is make the X here a negative for one of these. So now that it pops over. So that's an easy way to create uh, your nulls that line up, is to move both of them together and just negative out the X or the Y or Z, depending on where you're wanting that guy to move to. Now we want to put our weapon effects onto here. So again, you could do primitive null and rename each of these, or you could create scripts similar to mine. I'm going to add 2 weapon points here. And for this particular model, I think I'm going to, let's see. It's always interesting. You know what? I'm just going to make 1 weapon. This looks like a giant beam creator or something right here in the middle. Let's just do 1. It's a small ship. And then we'll bring it up. And you can see I put a box and an arrow on this one. Again, that's a preference that I did, box for the primary display and then an arrow for the shadow display. And then I have further here on point left, point front, point right, point back, and you see what it's doing is manipulating this rotation axis here. So these are simple scripts, and you can see what it's doing down here. Okay, so let me look at and see. We'll bring up our Explorer. We've got our root points. We have exhaust, above, aura, center, and a weapon, so that is good. We won't have bombing points. We won't have hangar points. Um, this particular model doesn't have an ability right now, but if I wanted to add ability points, I could do that as well. So again, they flow the same way. What you can see here too is because I'm using the script, it auto numbers for me. These numbers are important because you need these names to be unique. Manually doing it, which is how I started, is a real pain in the butt. Let's see, line this up again. All right, we'll pull this. So this would be a ability point, and we'll just have it come from one of these views here. Doesn't really matter. I don't have an ability yet. Okay. Now to recap again, we've imported the object. We've got our two UV maps set up. We've got our tangent pointing to the second UV map. We have our textures rigged. So we press 7, we get our render tree. We have our textures mapped to the Phong for the default scene material. We have our root points, which we can check by pressing 8. We have to have above, aura, and center. We have exhaust ports. We have our weapon null point, and we added an ability for possible future use. And we should be ready to export this model now. So it's important when we go to export a model that we have nothing selected. So what we want to do is always before we export, we press Control Shift A. So now nothing is selected in this model anywhere. And then we want to export as a .xsi. I choose version 3.6. We export. I have my own little directories here for different aspects of what I've done. We have a frigate alien 01. Since that's what I'm already working on, we'll just do a temp alien here. We're going to get a bunch of function not implemented. That's completely normal. It's because we're using just the free version. And now I'm going to go to my directory and we're going to go, let me see, more convert.bat. So this is the command I'm going to use, convert XSI. So you can see I'm just going and running the rebellion convert XSI here, which is I've just copied in to this directory, XSI project, rebellion. So that's in rebellion here. So this is the actual convert XSI from the rebellion installation. So I'm just going to reference back to that when I go to alien and find my temp. So I'm going to call my convert bat script and I'm going to feed it the temp alien. And you can see here, all it does is call convert XSI with the temp alien XSI, and then it's going to generate a temp alien mesh. Now, the things that we want to look for when we do the convert XSI is that we get the scene material with our textures referenced. We get our points found. We see our radius is 51, which is good. I wanted it around 50, and we don't have any errors. So it looks like this all generated correctly. So now if I want to test this in game, what I can do is plug it in to my mod. I'll just go ahead and pick a race here. Let's see, what do I already have running? go to Rebellion, go to my development. Let's see what's enabled. Alright, I'll throw it in HyperCorp just to test. And I'll just need to make sure to clean this out. Let me go to my .xsi directory. Okay, I need to get the temp alien mesh. I need to put that in this mesh directory. And then I need to get the 3 new textures. And I need to put those in. And then I need to edit one of my frigates to just test this real quick. Alright, let me go to a frigate here. We'll just do the light so it's, or the scout. We'll make it the scout. It's just there right out the gate. We're going to change this to temp alien, and then I'm going to copy this out. You don't have to worry about it. How you make your mod is fine. This is just how I make mine. It doesn't really impact importing a model. So I'm going to copy out this file. So I've got my 3 textures, I've got my mesh, I've got my change to the scout. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start up Sons of the Solar Empire. Little slow starting up here. There we go. Alright. Just have a lot of stuff running right now. Okay, let me... Okay. And there we go. There's the exhaust. And see, I need to work on the team colors a little. It's not quite with that red over the green. I'd have to brighten that up a little bit in the team color section, but we see we got the exhaust coming out in the right spots, and we should be able to see it attacking. Well, let's make this one. He's already jumping out at me. Nope, there we go. All right, So the model shows up good. And I will provide a link to my exported menu bar, and you can feel free to use any of these. The scripting is pretty simple. Um, so each one of these just goes through a little looping to apply the numbers. If you want to make your own, you can copy one of these and just add in whatever particle or null point you want to reference. So like for flares, you can see here I reference to the flare that I want to add, and I started those with Fs. If you just change this part and this part to be what you want, it's pretty simple to add your own using this as kind of a template. And that is all I have for how to import a model into Sins of a Solar Empire. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later.